Okay, good morning, everyone. Shavua Tov. As I tried to more than hint in the email, the line of the subject that it would be nice if we return back to shul and learn together. And even work on getting the nuts back as we used to, the refreshments. But it's much nicer when we're all inside and learning together. Anyhow, we will start with the Dvar Torah and the Parsha we read, and then we'll continue. The whole episode with Yaakov receiving the brachos from Yitzchak in a somewhat deceiving way raises a question. Like everyone asks, one of the most discussed issues in the Parsha. There are two ways to ask the question. One way is to ask, how could it be that Yaakov, the Midas HaEmes, he was special, is that special attribute, Yitene Metle Yaakov, Chesed LaAvram. So Midas HaEmes, he's the ultimate truth of the pillar of truth within the three Avos, and yet he receives the brachos by deceiving Yitzchak, by lying. Although Rashi explains it's like a white lie. Anochi Esav bechorecha. I am who I am, and Esav is your oldest. But it's not really what it sounds like, right? Right. At least a white lie that definitely is there. So one thing is to ask, how can he do such a thing? How can he receive the brachos by cheating? And the second question is to ask from Hashem's perspective, why did Hashem have it done this way? Why did Hashem lead the Rivka and Yaakov and Yitzchak and Esau to go through this whole event, which isn't so straight and honest, instead of having it go smoothly in a different way? So for the first question, very generally, we'll just say, I think the most simple answer would be that Rivka knew by prophecy, Alai kiletcha b'ni, says the Uglus, Alai itamar bin vuah. She had a prophecy that Yaakov should receive the brachos. Now, the fact that Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav, again, has to do with a whole long discussion of why did Yitzchak love Esav? What reason did he prefer or express his love to Esav more so than to Yaakov? Rivka did to Yaakov, of course, he got Rivka's favoring, but Yitzchak seemed like he favored Esav. And the answer to that, which is another fundamental issue in this week's parsha, the answer to that is most probably, one of the answers at least, of a very powerful answer, is that Yitzchak didn't necessarily prefer Esav, and he wasn't deceived by Esav, as Rashi explains, that he asked him all kinds of religious questions of the highest rank of a religious person, like to the utmost fine detail of halacha. He wasn't tricked by Esav. Yitzchak knew exactly who Esav was. But Dafka, because of knowing who he was, that's why he expressed his love towards him. If we have a kid who goes off the derech, then the best way to get him back is by love, tender, and care. So that's why Yahav Yitzchak et Esav. He loves him just in order to keep him within the beaten path of the Jewish heritage, as much as there was there from just a generation before. And so how come Rivka took away the bracha from Esau and made sure that Yaakov receives the bracha? Because of the prophecy she had. Yitzchak was trying to be Mekarav Esav, to bring him closer and closer, and even give him a blessing. Hashem should be what they want to supply for you in order for him to realize that everything comes from Hashem. Rivka knew that all this is not going to help. True, that's the proper way to treat our children, no matter if they're on the derech or off the derech. The proper way is to express our love towards them as much as we can, in order for them to feel the warmth and to want to be part of who we want them to be. But Rivka knew in this case specifically, there's no chance. Alay tamar bin vua. You see the prophecy that in this case, Esav is gone. No way to get him back. She, of course, was right. It doesn't even say what it says about Ishmael, that he was Choser b'tshuva towards the end of his life. By Yisrael, it doesn't even say that. Kept bad all his life. So she had to make sure that Yaakov receives the brachos and not Esau. That's why it had to be done that way. But from the point of view, and a very interesting halachic discussion I had last week with someone, which actually is based on, in some way, based on what happened in this parsha, exactly this week's parsha. I was asked on Monday from the women's class, I was asked this question, so it was mamish the right question to ask for this week's parsha, for last week's parsha. A woman had asked me about a shidduch question. She wants to fix up a boy and a girl together for shidduch purposes, and she's afraid that the girl will reject the moment she hears the details about the fellow. She'll reject because it's not. She has a list of things she's looking for. This guy doesn't fit anything on the list. So why does she want to do it anyhow?
Guilt so much, big commission?
Not at all, because it's a very close relative to this woman, so it's no guilt there. He's breathing, yeah. And he's a male. That's enough, right? No, but she happened to have met this fellow, and she felt that he's such a good neshama, such a good personality, giving person, a nice person, that she felt, even though nothing is on the list what she's looking for, but a good person. So why not? She wants to give it a try. Hi, good morning. But she knows that it's not going to be easy to fix them all together. So what she wanted to do was to trick the girl into it. How would she do that? Because he is a car dealer. This fellow is a car dealer. So she wants to bring this girl, not even herself, maybe her father. She wants to speak to her father to make believe as if he's interested in buying a car. And he'll go to this car dealer and he'll take his daughter with in order to, because he'll tell her that he needs her help. He'll look at the color, look at the shape, things that women can see better than he. So he'll also be playing the trick. He'll also be part of the scheme. And this way, she gets to meet this car dealer. And maybe by evoking a conversation between the two of them, maybe they'll feel fond of each other enough to date, to start dating each other. That's her plan. So she asked me if that's allowed, because you're doing nevas das. A person can't just go into a shop and look around if he has no.
The car dealer's not going to be part of the plan?
What's that?
The car dealer's not going to be part of the plan?
No. He himself is not going to notice.
Oh, okay.
No. Because it's funny to tell him that you're not on her list in any way. That's how you have to trick her into meeting you. It's uncomfortable for him to hear that. So he's not part of the plan either. He doesn't know what's going on either.
I want to give a chance to look at each other.
So why not ask him to date properly? Why have this tricky way? He won't understand. So it's better to have him also, that he should not be aware of this either. So they're both unaware of it. Only the father will be aware of what's going on. So it's knevas das. A person can't just go into a shop and look around if he's not interested in buying anything.
Can you just go in for cost comparison?
Not really. Okay. So if there's a chance, yes.
Not random cost comparison, but you're
really interested in buying something. You just want to see, then for sure, yes. For sure, you're allowed to go in, because then you're interested in buying. But if you have no interest whatsoever, you just like seeing things in that store and you have no interest in buying anything, You have to tell the shop owner before you go in or as you're going in, I'm not interested in buying anything. I just want to look around. Now here, it's more than that. Not just looking around, it's wasting the guy's time because you're going to sit down with him about cars and which car is good for you. Nothing is really planned. You're not planning on buying anything. No interest whatsoever. So it's worse than just walking into the shop and deceiving him by thinking that the shop owner will think that you're interested in buying. Here, it's worse than that. You're wasting his time. You're spending precious time with you, thinking that you may want to buy the car and really don't want to buy any car. So I checked.
Maybe he's a good salesman. He'll sell you a car.
Yeah. That's, by the way, the reason why many shop owners will allow you to walk around, even though you're not interested by a thing, because they think you may fall for something in the end and may buy it in the end, right? So, yesterday when I spoke about this question in the coordinate Minion Shir after the Minion Shir I gave. So one of the people there is a business person, and he's a marketing person. He was selling all kinds of things. So he said to me, no salesman is interested in wasting his time. If he sees that the person isn't serious immediately, the moment he detects that it's not a serious person, he walks away. They don't want to waste their time. Not even to the point, like you said, now you may be convinced and then to buy. You see he's not a serious guy that really wants to look into something seriously and maybe buy. They don't waste their time. Salesmen don't have time to waste for people that aren't serious. So it's really deceiving. It's really something that's gnevas das, truly, to make believe you want to buy the car and sit down with them for half an hour. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that had he known that you're not serious. On the other hand, your ultimate goal is this guy is a single fellow. Maybe have a shidduch for him and maybe him possibly getting married. So I didn't know what to answer. Back and forth. Yeah, very interesting question. Very, very.
We all know when it comes to shidduchim,
everything goes.
You can stretch the truth.
Stretch the truth. That's true.
It's makubal in all circles. Be it age, be it many
Well, it depends
things.
by stretch. There's stretching and then there's bending and contorting.
Yeah, right.
So obviously you have some leeway.
Right.
In my opinion,
Exactly.
leeway that you don't have in a regular circle.
Okay, exactly. So that's where I started going. I checked all kinds of situations, cases like that, where you stretch the truth or really you're not saying the truth really, in order to begin. Right, right, exactly. The goals versus the means. The goals justify the means? So by shidduchim, David is right. By shidduchim, we have quite commonly this idea of changing from the truth, deviating from the truth. The reason is most probably because we have this famous saying, Meshanim ipnei shalom. In order to create peace amongst people, you're allowed to change from the truth. Say things that aren't 100% true in order to create peace between people. We know from Aaron and Cohen. Aaron used to do that. He used to go to two people who had a very difficult argument and they're not talking to each other. He used to go to one of them and say, you know, this friend of yours that you had such a terrible argument with, he feels bad that it happened and he wants to apologize and he wants to befriend you again and all that. And then he goes to the other side and says the same about the other side.
And it wasn't true about
Nothing was true about anyone. But then they walked toward each other and they gave a hug and a kiss and the whole fine. Best friend, that's mutar. We even find by Hashem. We found 3 parshas ago, Vayera, where Sarah says, when she hears about her being conceiving and having a child, so she says, no, that's already the way Hashem says it. Vadoni zaken, yeah. After I'm so old already. had no period of it for a long, long time. Can it be that I will have a child? And my husband is old. My husband is an old guy. And when Hashem quotes this line from Sarah, he says, Sarah said, "Can I give birth at my age? I am old." That's how he repeated the quote as if from Sarah. So Rashi says there, in order to not to make a fight between Sarah and Avram, that he should feel bad that she's speaking that way about him. Hashem changed the words a little bit to sound like she's the one that's old. She said about herself. So we see that that's one of the most famous proofs for that. Yeah.
You know, Rabbi, in parenthesis, I never thought of it until this second.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that Sarah said about her husband.
Yeah.
But guess what? A parsha later, he has all these children with the
Torah.
He has a lot of children.
Right.
And it's so interesting. He has so
I think 12. Yeah.
Right. Yes. 12.
I think so, yeah. Like Am Yisrael.
Sarah would make his comment, is biological or about her husband, and yet a little bit down the line, I mean, he has a dozen kids.
Right.
Really, I never made that connection before.
True.
I mean,
we know from men, it's not. Yeah, right. We know men until they become.
They can be potent for a long time.
For a long time, right.
By her saying that was, you could just imply what you implied, that their relationship wasn't whatever, or that she felt that it wasn't. I mean, amazing Yavi.
Yeah,
Why would you say that?
Not relationship. I think she felt that. Yeah, but maybe she meant the physical. She started off with, I am impotent.
Yeah. I know I'm regulated with the period. My husband is also not a young.
Right. Oh, so I think when she meant by him is not necessarily biologically that he can't she can become pregnant because of him. I think she meant that it's not an age where you have children. No matter how you can or not.
Right. You don't have to explain like that because of the 12 children.
Right. It was 100. It was 100 at the time. 99-year-old man. Yeah. Yeah. 99. Right. Yeah. Right. Anyhow, so we see from this that you're allowed to deviate a little bit from the truth in order to create peace, shalom bayis, between people. So I thought we could use the same idea here also, the same concept. You're not saying the truth. You don't want to really look for a car now. But it's in order to create peace, meaning to create a new home in Am Yisrael. Bait Ne'eman B'Yisrael. Let's strengthening the bonding between two people and making them one. So it's not that they had a fight before, but it's the same idea. If Shlom Bait is allowed, then to create a bait, kol sheken. Create a bait, definitely can change anything. And that's why we allow for a shadchan to change a little bit of the truth to make it look a little bit more perfect in the eyes of the other side, in order to bring them together. Then they'll find out what the truth is, hopefully. Hopefully they don't live a life that they're cheating each other, hiding from each other different things. But by the way, you mentioned age. I saw as I was looking up this question, I found very interesting that both the Chazon Ish and Rav Yoshiv allowed giving a slightly different age of the boy or the girl than they really are. They allowed it, but slightly different. So like 2-3 years max difference in what they are. Sometimes it makes a huge difference. If she's 31, right, 31, and you say 29, that makes a very big difference psychologically. People think 29 is okay. 31, that's crazy, right? That's too much. So you can change to like by 2 years, but it can really make a difference.
The well-known fact that Chazon Ish was strict.
Right. He himself was strict, but he was strict by vast amount of years. Crazy. And he didn't notice, he didn't look at women at all. So he didn't notice it at all. He just met the character. He didn't look at who she was and how she looked. And it turns out that he was 20. He got married. And she was 40. 40 years old. They tricked him by 10 years. They said she's 30.
Tricked him
By 10 years. They told him she's 30. And he was tricked by 10 years.
And he married her?
And he married her. That was his wife. Had no children because of that.
Why did they do that? Who did that? That's terrible.
It's very terrible.
The gut of a door?
Yeah.
20 wasn't the gutter, he was a
I know, but
yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. He was very high up there. Yeah. But they did that for her sake because she wasn't getting married, obviously, 40 years old. And to do chesed for her. He himself knew that he was doing chesed because they said to him, she's 30, she's not getting married, no one wants her, you're willing to. He says, okay, why not? And then she was 40. When he found out, immediately the first few days after he was married, she told him. So he says, well, this wasn't what I was planning on. This wasn't what I was told. Mekach taos, I can't stay with you because I want children. She cannot have children anymore. At that time, we're talking about in the early 40s or something. Yeah. Much earlier, right? Right. He died 52. Tafshin Yud Bet.
Well, obviously, back then, they didn't have any.
Yeah, it was very nothing to help them out, right?
The 20s or 10s.
Yeah, right. So, 100 years ago at least. Or more. So she said, if you do that, I'll jump off the first bridge I see. Commit suicide. He says, "Begone nefesh, you can't divorce her." He stayed his whole life with her. And not only did not have children, she was a very difficult woman. Difficult characteristics. This I know from my Rosh Yeshiva of Kerem B'Yavne. Rav Goldvicht, he was a very, very strong, close student of the Chazon Ish. He always gave all the stories. Goldvicht, yeah. Chaim Yaakov Goldvicht, yeah. It's the uncle to Rav Meir Goldvicht from YU. It's his uncle, yeah. So he told us stories that she was a difficult woman, although she was protecting her husband to sit and learn, and she did a good job. He definitely sat and learned his whole life. But she didn't want anyone to come in to see him and ask him questions because she wanted him to learn. But they needed him desperately for questions and to learn from him. So Goldvicht said they used to climb in from the window because she didn't allow them from the door. Climb in from the window, then they got his feet to. Anyway, whatever. It's a very sad story, but yeah. But yeah.
The marriage was consummated for whatever reason. It was consummated. Yeah. And they decided it was because of Mekach taos. Did you marry your Cohen?
We barely ever say such a thing. Because to prove Mekach taos is very difficult.
20 years in this situation makes it pretty easy. No?
Yeah, 10 years. Yeah, they told him she was 30. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But
then the base did that. There was no kiddush.
Right. They can nullify the kiddushin totally, cancel them from to begin with. There's no kiddushin to begin with.
I would say,
but it's something we barely use. We barely use that system, that technique.
Why would he let that happen to himself? Obviously, if a woman's 30 and she's not married, there must be something about it that's problematic. Yeah,
but he's not a person that cared so much about the personality.
But to do a chesed with your whole life, with your whole.
Yeah.
I mean, is that? I mean, maybe you made a mistake.
It's a very big darga. It's a very huge level of a person. All he cared about is learning Torah. He didn't care who she was.
Right. He wanted to be able to learn 18 hours a day.
Exactly.
And have a woman that would accept that.
But many women, if they knew that their husband had the co-host that he had, would do that.
I think so. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
No, I understand. I understand. But you can tell.
Still.
Right. But he had someone that would agree to let him live his lifestyle, his dream.
Yeah, that's part of the reason he did it. Right.
You don't have a big list of ladies waiting for to support her husband like that. And she knows going into it, he will not be spending a lot of time with her, not spending a lot of time with the family, he will not be a breadwinner. These are all things that were made very, very clear in the beginning.
Sure.
Yeah, but the truth of the matter is, it's very easy for her to say, I'll devote my life to my husband when there's no other life to her. She had no children. She knew she wasn't going to have children, so obviously she could devote her life to her.
This woman, yeah. Okay, but I'm saying, no, but David is saying it's hard to find a normal woman who would agree to that.
Right, I hear what you're saying.
Right, that's part of the idea.
He came with a lot of, whatever he do. He came with requirements.
Yeah, right. Very strict requirements. Yeah. By the way, Rav Shlomo Fisher of our generation, he's still alive. He made a condition with his wife before they got married that when they finish the Shabb brachos together, 1 week together, he'll never be home for the entire week. That's how he spent his whole life. He was away in the yeshiva the whole week. He came back only for Friday Shabbos. That's how he lived his whole life. Shlomo Fisher. Yeah, in Itri. He had a bed in his office. He used to sleep there every night. Didn't come home the whole week. Only Friday Shabbos, back to the yeshiva.
Friday Shabbos. Children?
Yes. He had children. Okay, we won't go into who they are or what they are. It didn't work out too well. Yeah, what's the main story? Right. How could it work out? No, you think if you're learning the whole time, so you have Siyata Dishmaya.
Rabbi, more than one children's story or just one child's story?
And I know of one. One child is
a good story? No.
Yeah.
I'll do a Google search.
Yeah. One that I know of, the others I don't know who they are, what they are.
There's a lot of things. Everybody can ask all sorts of questions, but sometimes people who have a certain kind of personality will ask questions that they shouldn't ask. You know how people.
Yeah. They don't have the social requirements
to realize that's not a question that you ask, particularly not in public, particularly not for this person.
Okay.
So in that situation, let's say someone asks you that question, and by answering the truth,
you may be embarrassed at things.
Embarrassment, issues.
Yeah. You can lie, but try to do it as close as possible to the truth.
What's better to do? To lie or to just stay silent?
To ignore.
I'm wondering,
ignore or ask him to stay silent. Yeah.
Ignore or just.
You could say, I prefer not to answer your question.
That's my question. Is it better to say I prefer not
to
answer?
Definitely, it's better to. Depends on the circumstances. If you're gonna embarrass that person by saying something like that, then you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't embarrass someone just to get yourself off the hook.
That couldn't embarrass.
Right. Again, depends on the circumstances. Yeah. Okay, if you're sitting at a table with 3-4 people, it's okay. It's easier. If you're at a shiur, he's asking out loud something that you don't want to answer, and you want to shut him up, that's very embarrassing for him also. Right. And to make sure not to create a worse sin by embarrassing him and being embarrassed yourself.
So then you can distort the truth.
Yes, to the slightest way, the least way possible. Make it as close to the truth as possible, but you're allowed to, of course. Because, you can't reveal things that you don't want the public to know about you and shame yourself and your whole
you are allowed
personality. Yeah. Deviate from the truth by as little as possible. Yeah. Anyhow, back to our case. So I said about age. So I said the Chazon Ish and Rabbi Yoshi said you're allowed to change the age by just a few years. 2-3 years is okay. Not too much, but a few years is okay. Shlomo Zalman on this specific topic of age, Shlomo Zalman said, no, not allowed to change anything about the age because people are makpid. People really want to know the age. They don't want to know close to it, 2 years left, 2 years more. They want to know the real age so that you cannot distort it in any way. Say the truth of the matter, no matter what, even if it's 31 and you're dying to say 29, you can't even say 31 because it makes a difference. And anything that makes a difference, you can't change from the truth. But if it's something that, let's say, if someone has some disease that's controlled, it's not something dangerous and it's not something that affects their life terribly, like diabetes diabetic patient, and they're controlled. They take the insulin. They have a diet. They're living a normal life. So they have the injection every few hours. So that type of thing, you do not have to reveal to the other side at the beginning. When they start seeing each other for 3, 4, 5 dates, if it's getting more and more serious, then that side that has it has to reveal to the other side what they've got, because that's a point where on one hand, you're able to go out with people. Otherwise, if you say it from the very beginning, who want to go out with this person? Why? It's called in Hebrew, likanes lemita chola. Sick bed, or I don't know what the expression would be in English. Why enter a situation that's not healthy or totally healthy? I'm a healthy person. Everything's fine with me. Why should I see a girl who has diabetes or the opposite side? So from the very, if you say it from the very, very beginning at the shidduch itself, no one's going to want to date that person. So you're allowed to disclose that information in the beginning, but then when it's getting a little bit, it's warming up between them, then you have to say it before it gets very serious. Because when it gets very serious, and it's not fair, because you've tricked the person into marrying you when they really may have not wanted to. But at the point where it's not very serious, they still have free choice to decide whether to continue or not. So that's the right time to disclose such information to the other side, and then it's not considered total deceiving. But on the other hand, the 4 or 5 times, first times was Gnevas Das. You're seeing someone without telling them the entire truth about yourself. So we see that by shidduchim we allow more than in other cases to not to say the entire truth of the matter. But then I thought I need to bring a proof that's even more strongly connected to our case, because in our case, the car dealer, it's not really about oneself, that the age or the health situation or other things. Chozer b'tshuva. If someone is a chozer b'tshuva person, Baal tshuva, you have to say that from the very beginning, or can you say it again after 3, 4, 5 times that you've seen the girl? You can wait, because if they're completely religious now, totally religious and devoted and committed totally to Torah mitzvos, what does it really matter to the other side that they were chozer b'tshuva? Unless
he's a Kohen.
He's a Kohen.
He's a Kohen. Why would that make a difference?
The girl's a Baal Tshuva?
If the girl's Baal Tshuva. Well, Baal Tshuva is not necessarily a problem. You mean Gioret. Gioret you can't marry.
I just finished your almost.
Yeah.
With the goy, you can't marry a Kohen.
Okay, with the goy, but why would we think that a Baal Tshuva girl?
American Baal Tshuva girl.
American Baal Tshuva is probably a chazaka.
Oh yeah, it's that bad.
Rav Steinberg.
Yeah,
I know the case.
That's who I see.
Sorry, I'm still unable to get there. I know of a case of a guy who he was Baal Tshuva, and we first got to this community I was in. I won't say where. Yeah. He used to go up and get Kohen. They didn't duchen, of course, every day in America, but whatever. And all of a sudden he stopped doing it. And I asked him what happened, and I was friendly with him. And he said he and his wife were both Baal Tshuva. And when she was in college, she dated non-Jewish men, and things happened. And she was, she's a zona. I mean, not in the modern term.
The point of view of halachic.
And so they'd already had a kid, and he had a choice now: divorce his wife or remain a halal. And he decided he already had a couple of kids. I mean, he didn't know before, right? He turned religious after he got married, after he had kids.
Yeah, wow.
So now he wasn't going to throw his wife, and his kids. So he no longer was, So it happened. So you do need to know.
Wow. Yeah, it's impossible because really he doesn't have a choice. It's not that he have a choice to remain with her and be a halal.
I know.
But that's what he felt, that
exactly
he sacrificed his kuna for remaining with her, right?
Right. It's not necessarily the halacha, but listen, I felt for him. What can you do?
Yeah. It's very different from the same. Right.
Who could make that?
He's sinning every moment with her, right?
Huh?
Yeah. It's an ongoing sin.
Huh?
It's very difficult to make to decide if no, can't judge, right? Wow. Anyhow, yeah, very sad. Anyhow, so I was trying to look for a source that would be more similar to our case, where the deceiving was being done on something totally separate, not the issue of the shidduch itself. We're not disclosing all the information. Rather, we're attempting to buy a car, but not really, in order to have him meet the girl. So that's something totally besides the people themselves. It's not the shidduch itself that we're lying about. It's not the people themselves in the shidduch. We're lying about a separate issue of the business of that guy in order to have them meet. That may be a little different. I thought to myself, I need to find something that's more similar to that. So I found only one case in the meantime, in the Hagos Maimonios and the Rambam. Hagos Maimonios is a compilation of Rishonim, which is very interesting. It's nothing, it wasn't written, those Rishonim don't discuss the Rambam at all. It's just a summary of the Rishonim who discuss the issue, that the topic the Rambam is talking about, but it's nothing to do with the Rambam. It's like to bring the Tosfos and the Ritva and Rashba and Ramban, what they say regarding this topic that the Rambam is now talking about. That's the idea of the Hagos Maimonios. So I don't remember who he quotes there. It's in Hos Ishus, Perik Yud Zayin, Ot Zayin, 17:7, where he discusses this question of a woman who's about to marry someone, and the ksuba was written by the chassan that he's pledging to support, and then also be Baal Chov, in debt to her of a certain amount of money. That, like we all signed our ksuba, if chas v'chalila there's divorce, or she becomes a widow, she receives this and this amount of money. Now she wasn't secure. This woman wasn't secure enough with the husband promising this. She wanted arevim, guarantors, to sign that if chas v'chalila he can't pay the amount, they will. So the rabbi called a few people and they signed in as a ravim. Little did she know that a ravus doesn't work by ksuba. There is no such thing as a ravus on ksuba. We won't go into the Allahic reasoning. It has to do with the fact that he anyway owes her the ksuba no matter what. And a rave is only if a person lends money to someone due to the fact that the person gave him a ravim. The whole situation occurs due to the fact that the ravim signed, the guarantor signed, that if the person who lent the money won't be able to pay back, they'll pay back instead. Here, the husband anyway has to write the ksuba without the ravim. So the ravim don't count at all, and they're not really liable then to pay the debt if he doesn't pay it. But she didn't know that. And the ravim sign the ksuba as if to make her feel good, although they're never really on the hook. They can never be charged for it, but she thinks that they can. And there goes Harmonios, quotes a Rishon there that says, yes, they can sign the ravus. Yeah, it must be the halacha. I didn't check in the Shulchan Aruch, but right. I think it's the halacha. Right. So we see here that it's a separate business deal, nothing to do with the people themselves. Are they like this? Are they like that? What characteristics do they have? How is their health? What's their age? Not about themselves. It's about a side point that she wants to make sure the ksuba works by having guarantors sign, and really there's no meaning. It's meaningless for them to have signed, but they sign anyhow. They're allowed to sign anyhow. So we see that for creating shalom, building a new home in Am Yisrael, we allow some deceiving actions in order to make them come together. So from this, I called back this lady and told her that she can go ahead with her plan and have the people meet by the car dealer, thinking that they're coming to buy a car, and then he'll see hopefully his wife. He'll see the girl, and then hopefully they'll strike something between them. Someone told me when I said this in the other shir, someone said, in the end, then if they get married, then all the cars are hers. So she'll really be owning the cars. Like she's
he owns the place.
I don't know. I don't know what his status there is, but yeah, right. Yeah, it doesn't mean he owns them, but excuse me. Okay, so all this taking us back to the parsha, all has to do with the Gnevas Das that Rivka and Yaakov performed on Yitzchak to receive the brachos. So he said there's one discussion of how could they have done such a thing, and that we explained already. But the other issue, which I heard on Friday from Rav Angleand, who I hear his shir every Friday, and he was quoting the Sfas Emes. The Sfas Emes discusses how come Hashem, from Hashem's point of view, why did it have to be so? Why did Hashem have to plan it this way, that it's done by deceiving, and he gets his brachas this way? Why not have Yitzchak realize towards the end of his life that really Yaakov deserves the brachos, and that's it? Why not make it as simple as that? Why should he go through such complications? So we never really asked that question and expect to have an answer, because asking why about Hashem is an invalid question, because it's lo machshavtayim machshavatechem. Hashem does things his ways. We don't necessarily understand. But when we can explain something, then why not? If we're able to explain, let's just try to explain. If we're not, we know it's for our own good. No one can explain the Holocaust. We know it's for our good. No idea in what way and how and why. We don't ask questions. But his Sfas Emes had an answer, so he asked the question in this case. He asked, how come Hashem did it this way? So he has a beautiful answer. He says, this is the moment where Yitzchak bestows upon Yaakov a blessing that will be for generations on. It's not only for blessing Yaakov personally. It's Yaakov and all his descendants, all his offspring, generations onwards, all of Am Yisrael. It's a bracha to Klal Yisrael. Says the Sfas Emes, had Yaakov received the bracha more naturally, more directly, more in a straight fashion, that may have meant that who deserves this bracha in generations to come? Only those who follow Hashem's words. Only those who act like Yaakov. Not saying at that level of Yaakov, but in general, people who are following the Torah mitzvahs, people who are good-natured, people who are balei chesed, people who strive only for the truth, they'll be receiving the bracha all generations to come. They'll be part, only they will be part of Am Yisrael, Klal Yisrael. Actually, Am Yisrael is Am Yaakov, because Yisrael is the second name. So only they will be connected and receiving blessings from Hashem. Now that it came in such an indirect fashion and by deceiving and lying and all that, says the Sfas Emes, then even those who are liars in their lives, whether it's between Ben Adam L'Chavero or Ben Adam L'Makom, they're dishonest to their fellow friend and dishonest towards Hashem. Even they will be part of the bracha. And that's a very beautiful message that the Sfas Emes teaches us.
Wasn't simply towel that there would be dew and
no, much more than that. It says there, meaning you'll be controlling the world. All other nations of the world will worship you, will be enslaved to you, serve you. Yeah. That's never happened. The days of Shlomo Melech it did.
20 years?
Yeah, right. 26 years.
It seems like that bracha like that from Yaakov.
Yeah.
And only to be except for only 1%.
By David HaMelech also. Yeah, it's only David and Shlomo. Right. Only David and Shlomo. Right.
You study Jewish history, based by Rishon by Sheni, you'd be shocked how few years we were behaving properly.
Yeah.
So few, it's mind-boggling.
I understand.
So I'm saying that's the way Jewish history is made out.
Yeah, it's true. It's our fault. He's saying it's for service that even when we don't deserve, we'll be getting blessed. That's only individually. As an individual who's not behaving properly, he'll be blessed anyhow, because it's part of Am Yisrael. But if Klal Yisrael is not behaving properly, they're not liable to get. They don't deserve getting the bracha. Still depends on our actions, after all, as a collective, as a nation. So we're not there yet. The promise is, the bracha blessing is that when we're acting properly, then all this will come into place. So,
explanation as to why it is that Rivka didn't share what she knew with Yaakov.
With Yitzchak? About Yaakov with Yitzchak?
In other words, my understanding is that Yitzchak had this conception: I have sons, one is a Gibor, one is a Tam Chacham, they'll work together, but we knew from the prophecy that was
it's not going to work.
So why didn't she tell him that?
Right. So there are two directions to answer this question. One is the Netziv Volozhin in the Hamek Davar in the end of Parshas Chayei Sarah, where he says that the very first meeting between Rivka and Yitzchak, when she sees Yitzchak for the very first time, she covers herself and falls off the camel. She's in awe. What was that?
I was shear after that.
Oh, yeah? Interesting. About the relationship between them?
Based upon the Netziv.
The Netziv? Yeah. Right. So that Netziv tells us that Rivka was in awe. That's the type of relationship she had with Yitzchak. He was Iras Haromus. He was so holy. And he was a person that was deeply, deeply connected to Hashem. Nothing interested him besides worshiping Hashem every moment of his life. Because of the Akedah, because of never leaving Eretz Yisrael, all kinds of things that made him very, very holy. He wasn't a person that interacted so much. You don't find him interacting like Avram and Yaakov society. So she has that fear of him, but in a way of awe, not fearful because of him punishing her or doing something bad to her, because he was so tremendous. She respected him so much. So she felt he has his understanding, his ways. Maybe he was also in contact with Hashem. Maybe he received a different prophecy. He knows what he's doing. She didn't want to interfere with his line of thought because he was so tremendous in her eyes.
That's saying that she was kind of intimidated by him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, she did have the koach of prophecy on her side.
True. But she felt that he must have, if she got it, he must have had him even stronger.
She got it through somebody. She got it through direct. Her husband would be getting it direct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she was obviously quite an intelligent woman. She would want to say then to herself, well, shouldn't we figure it out?
Okay, but he was so out of this world that she felt that it's not something that they can discuss normally as a human conversation.
It seems that the destiny of history eyes on that.
Yeah. So she got it in the end her way.
That's true.
But she did it in a way that...
but wouldn't they have a way of doing that?
Right. Yeah.
On that same theme of her and their relationship like that, when she first had the discomfort in a pregnancy, so she says, Hashem, right? So she said, all right, she's Hashem to Shem ve'ever.
Right.
Why does she have to schlep to Shem ve'ever? Her father-in-law and her husband are both Nevi'im. What does she have to go there for? Right. So one of the answers I heard was that, well, from the curse of Chava was only not supposed to apply to women who were tzadkaniyot. And so she thought, if I tell them, already she feels like she's, inadequate compared to them. If I tell them I'm having these pains, oh my God, they're going to think I'm completely useless.
A Rasha, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's part of that. Part of that whole same issue of the relationship between them and how she must have felt, compared to that.
Yeah. And the truth is that when Hashem answered their prayers, he answered Yitzchak's prayers, it says. Vayater lo Hashem, lo velo la. Why? Says Rashi, Gdolat tfilah tzadik ben rasha'a. Tzadikah ben rasha. Meaning that after all, Yitzchak had much more holiness and stronger relation with Hashem because he was Tzaddik ben Tzaddik. And she was only a newcomer to being a Tzaddik, a Tzaddikah, because their parents were a Shaim. So it was less holiness there. Even though you would think, wow, she's greater because she veered off her parents' wicked ways and became Tzaddikis. It's even greater. But after all, tefillos are answered, our prayers are answered because of the amount of tzaddik, the accumulation of tzaddikus. The accumulation of tzaddikus is stronger. Tzchus avos. We speak about tzchus avos when we talk about tefillah. So we accumulate as many tzchus as we can in order for the tefillah to penetrate to Hashem. And that was Yitzchak greater than Rivka.
Nina mentioned that in the shir yesterday.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting point. So she shows that with Rachel, it says that Hashem answers the prayers. And who is Rachel? Rachel's not only, she's the granddaughter of Besuel, and the daughter of Laban. She gets less yichus than Rivka did even.
But there Yaakov wasn't praying, so there's no one to say. There's no one to compare to. It's only her praying. It doesn't say that a prayer of such a person is not accepted. It just says if you have two people praying, and for the same thing, they pray for the same thing, and one is on a higher level than the other, then that person's prayers will be accepted before that one. Yaakov wasn't praying for her there. That's what he says. I'm fruitful. I have children. You're the one that does it.
So obviously, if you take you mentioned that in this year, and if you look at the thread of that, that's saying that's the way Yaakov Avinu is going to speak to his wife.
Right? Chazal say that.
So we learned. The reason why he spoke to her like that was a pep talk.
To encourage her to pray further and further and further.
Right. You can't take it as shot.
Right.
It was a pep talk to say you have your own kavos. You have your own powers.
Use them.
But compare that to Elimelech spoke to Hannah.
Yeah.
He didn't say, "Oh, what do you want from me?"
You mean Elkanah?
I'm better than the husband and then all the children and right? Much
you mean
maybe he learned from him.
Yeah, you mean Elkanah, right?
Elkanah.
Yes.
Because of Zoom, I was able to get most of this year.
Wow.
So I got here. So you should know, Yesh Bazet.
Excellent.
I heard your opening lines. So, you're right, we should all be here. But it does, Danny also said, I think he's not able,
not able, right.
Add an element of
Okay, terrific.
I know it's frustrating. But,
fine. Good. Thank you for coming. Anyhow, so finish this discussion. It's very thought-provoking and very there's a lot of curiosities in this parsha that make us think deeply into our lives. Anyhow, so that's what the Hashem says, that Hashem made this happen this way in order to include all types of Jews, even those who aren't sincere, who aren't honest style of life. Even they, like Yaakov played around in this case, even they are part of the blessing. Even they receive the blessing in the end. Because after all, their neshama is pure. And then no matter what they do externally, internally, they're part of Am Yisrael. So we accept everyone no matter what. Obviously, as we just spoke now, it's much better to be sincere and honest and be on a higher level and climb up as much as we can to receive the blessings even stronger. But even a person who's fallen and is not so honest, is not so is not following Hashem's ways really, but still they're under the umbrella of Birkas Yitzchak, and they receive the blessings in some way, even though they're so far away. Okay.
The question I was asking about, it's like you said there were two approaches. One was the Emek Davar.
Right. I forgot about your question. Right. The other approach, again, for Sandra's question, how about how come Rivka didn't reveal what she knew by prophecy to Yitzchak? Just tell him, I just received prophecy. So one answer is that we said in the name of the Natziv that the relationship was a different type of relationship altogether. The other is that this is the Gemara that learns out from in Maseches Yuma. Yuma, when Moshe Rabbeinu is told hundreds of times or thousands of times, spoken to by Hashem and telling him all kinds of messages to tell Am Yisrael, it always says Le'mo. Vayidaber Hashem and Moshe Le'mo. It's always that's the structure of the pasuk before Moshe tells us what he heard from Hashem. Why does it need to say Le'mo? Vayidaber Hashem and Moshe. And then it should just say what Hashem spoke to Moshe about. Says the Gemara in Yuma. From this we learn that when someone receives prophecy from Hashem, he mustn't tell it to anyone unless he's told to tell it. When Hashem gives you a prophecy or gives a person a prophecy, unfortunately we don't have a person in our generation that receives prophecies. We don't have Nevi'im yet. But when a person receives prophecy, he mustn't say it to anyone unless he's told to tell it. So that's why it says Le'mo. What?
I just went last mission.
That's usually we say that for a person who Dafka doesn't tell over what he received. He received the nevuah and he captures it to himself. Here we're saying the opposite. He received the nevuah, he mustn't tell it to anyone unless he's told to tell. But in your case, you're right. The Chai Mitzvah Shamayim is when you were told to tell, you don't tell it. Hakovesh nevuato. I think that's the way it says. But it could also be in a situation where he says the nevuah, even though he wasn't told to tell. I'm not sure it says Mitzvah Shamayim on that. I'm not sure to check if that's part of it.
That was the only issue. He was told to tell.
Right. And he didn't want to do it. Right. That's why the examples of Chai Mitzvah Shamayim, right. But when you're not told to tell, you mustn't tell it. That's what the Gemara in Yuma says. Otherwise, it's extra to write Le'mo. Why say Le'mo? In all the hundreds of thousands of times it appears in the Torah, it's unnecessary. If a whole word there is unnecessary, it's extra. The answer is no, because only because of the Le'mo, that's why Moshe was allowed and then had to say it to the Jewish people because he was told Le'mo, go tell them.
You're saying that answers the question.
So that answers the question. The moment she wasn't told to tell, she's not allowed to. She has to keep it to herself.
Why she had to turn to subterfuge.
What's that?
That explains why she had to turn to this deceptive approach. Because
yeah, right.
Sit down and tell them straight out, hey, listen.
Exactly. That's why she had to go through a conniving way, because she wasn't allowed to tell him. Right. That's a similar way we explained on Avram. Why did he not tell Sarah that they're going to conceive a child? Because he was told that before the three angels came and told her. Why didn't he tell her? The answer is because he received prophecy from Sarah. It doesn't say go tell him. It answers a lot of questions that way.
It doesn't answer that. In other words, God told this person for
a
reason.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Although you could argue husband and wife are different because that's like one person, but between Rivka and Yitzchak, it's not. And here you see, if you set this answer, then you see it's not. So the Gemara there learns from this idea, this concept, the Gemara in Yuma learns that the same is between human beings. When someone tells you something about themselves, personal, unless it tells you that you can go say it to others, you're not allowed to say it to anyone else. This is the Gemara learns from this. Same as when Hashem tells you something, that's the same as Havdil, when a person tells you something, don't say it to anyone else. Even if they don't tell you it's a secret, don't tell. They don't need to tell you that it's a secret. The moment they told you something that's personal, if they told you something about a scientific fact, then okay, tell it to anyone you want. There's nothing personal there, nothing meant to be kept to yourself. But if you know it's something personal, they didn't say keep it a secret. You mustn't go and tell it to anyone unless you get permission. You can ask that person, can I tell this to others or to my wife or to my this or to that? Then if they allow you to, then you can. So it's a big message for us, even without prophecy, not having prophecy in our generation yet. It's a big message between Adam and Chaveru, human beings. Okay, so let's see now. Let's continue with that. We sort of completed Shemitah in the way that we wanted to, in a more concise way, in summarizing the most important parts of Shemitah. If anyone has questions during the course of the year, gladly, or here and there, I may be mentioning things that we may have forgotten to discuss, but in general, we did most of it. So let's continue with Shabbos. We said last week that we're starting a new chapter called Zerem Chashmali, electric circuit, which is all kinds of issues that have to do with electricity, which is definitely something very relevant, comes up in our lives a lot. Just this morning, after the minyan David and Ariel, so this person approaches me and says, of course, I knew he was talking about himself, but he says it in third person. If a person had forgotten, he said everything for Shabbos, everything is all set, perfect, fine. He forgot to put the plata into the socket. Just forgot to plug it in. So his hot plate remains cold for the entire Shabbat. Can you do anything about it? Let's say the timer is now off. So can you place it in? And then when the timer gets to a proper time, we'll turn on. So I said, no, of course not, because grama is not allowed. Unless from Kom Hefsed Gadol. This isn't a Hefsed Gadol. You're not going to lose anything. You're not going to damage anything in your house. You're just going to not have hot food, but it's not Hefsed Gadol. Shila Medalit Sif of Bet. The Ramah says grama is allowed, meaning an indirect. This is indirect. This is delayed. It's a delayed manner to it because you put it into the socket, it's still off. When the timer goes on, then it's going to switch on. So it's a grama. It's not direct, immediate results. It's delayed results. So the results is grama, but that's still not allowed. Still not. Derabanan.
Let's say you're doing grama, you do it with the shinui.
Oh, so that's what I got to. Exactly. That's what I got to. So I said to him, since grama is rabbinically forbidden, so you can't put it into the socket there normally. I didn't mention shinui because it's very difficult to find a shinui that works for you to put into the socket. Yeah.
Left hand versus right hand.
No, that's not enough.
No, I'm saying.
Right. Left versus right is not enough. Because the post can say that that's barely noticeable and it doesn't really make a true change in the way you're doing it. It has to be noticeable. It's shinui there, except for one malacha that left versus right or the vice versa works for a person is kiva. Only the malacha of writing, because there we really see the difference. The person who's a lefty or righty, if he writes with the other opposite hand, then we can tell a big difference. Otherwise, it's not a difference, not enough of a difference. So you could do it the two backs of your hand to try to get it in.
It's very difficult.
Totally the timer down. Right.
Actually, I'm sorry. I know you're going to talk about it. It's interesting to me, the whole thing. What if you are the one that always does it, which is very how it is in the bayit.
Right. Usually it's the man who...
you bring not necessarily a child, a katan or not, but like, in other words, is that a shinui in and of itself? But probably not.
No. The shinui has to be the way it's done any person. Even if it's not the regular person who normally does it, but the person, whoever it may be that does it, has to do with shinui. That he's a katan is not wise either. Sorry. For two reasons.
There's a katan before the gil chinuch.
Right.
Because katan is a very wide concept.
True, but in any case, in no way would this be okay. Why? Because in this case, you have to instruct the child. He's not going to play around with the cord and know to put it in. You have to instruct him to put it in. Sometimes even lead his hand towards the socket for him to put it in. We're talking about 3-year-old, 4-year-old kid, for chinuch. That is not allowed midoraita. You're switching it out from a derabanan of grama to a deraita isur. Why? Because that's called safile bayadai. Safile bayadai means if a gadol directs, instructs, leads a child to do a malacha, then for the gadol it's an isur deraita to have done so. Where does the Gemara learn this from? 3 psukim the Gemara teaches us this concept. Emor ve'amarta להזהיר גדולים על הקטנים, and I believe לא יעשה כל מלאכה. The 3 of them, I remember all 3 of them, but it's definitely a very strict halacha that leading a child, no matter what age, even if he's a day old, a baby a day old, they have no idea what they're doing, but you're pushing their hand to do something. Or as they're getting older, as they get older and they're 3 or 4 years old, and you tell them do this, do that, or you're leading them to do it, it's an issur d'oraita, even though for the katan itself it's not d'oraita. The katan itself he's barely d'rabbanan. He's not even the age of chinuch. By the way, for lavim, for the negative commandments, the age of chinuch is the age of 3, not 6 like the aseh. The positive commandments, it's around the age of 6 that a kid becomes aware of what they're doing and understanding and knowing that Hashem tells it to do this and all that. That's the age of 5, 6, the Gemara says. 5 for genius kids and 6 for less. It depends on the IQ of the kid. But for Lavim, it's the age of 3, because the age of the kid knows that he's not meant to do certain things. If he understands that he's not meant to do certain things, the parents tell him, don't cross the street alone. So after once or twice, he's not going to cross the street alone. If he attempted to do it, he knows what the results are, and he won't do it anymore. So the moment he understands the instruction of not doing something, that's the moment that chayav chinuch-wise, not the right. The rabbanan becomes the education age for a kid and not to do sins. Now, but that's only rabbinic. If a gadol directs the katan to do something, it's an issur d'oraita of the gadol. It could be that when he directs him to do a grama, then it could be the rabbanan.
How can it be created in the sin itself? Chashmal is the rabbanan, and the grama is rabbanan. How can two rabbanan make it d'oraisa?
No. Chashmal in this case is not the rabbanan because the plata, the hot plate, is hav'ara. That's d'oraita, strictly d'oraita. Not every electrical appliance is d'rabbanan. Electrical appliances that don't have burning elements in them, a filament wire that burns, they are rabbinically forbidden, only rabbinically forbidden. But the electrical appliances that have in them a burning element that's burning hot, to create heat, that's how the hot plate works. And inside there are wires that get red. Red. That's hav'ara d'oraita. That's the right level according to all poskim. Not talking about the Chazon Ish, who says that all electrical appliances are d'oraita because of bone. I'm not talking about the Moshe Weiss, who says that all electrical appliances are d'oraita because of makir patish. I'm talking about Shlomo Zalman, who holds that most electrical appliances are only rabbinically forbidden because of molid, nolad. But even according to him, the moment there's a filament wire there that burns, that gets red and extracts heat, that's deoraita, hav'ara, no question. That's not a question at all. All poskim agree. So the moment a gadol instructs a katan to do something, it becomes a deoraita. Maybe because it's grama, because the timer is off right now, going to turn on later on, then that's really not possible that if although a katan that does any malacha is the rabbana, and yet safile bayadayim, to force a kid or to instruct the kid to do something is d'oraita, but not if the malacha itself is the rabbana. The fact that it's a child, that the Torah tells you anyhow, you're chayav in d'oraita on what a kid does by you instructing him. But if it's rabbinically forbidden, not because it's a child, it's a kid, but because the malacha itself is grama, then it could be really that the gadol is also the rabbanon. But we don't want to do rabbanans either. So it doesn't help to use a child in this case. The only thing I told him this morning was to have a goy come in. You have a goy come in and plug it in, but at a time when it's not supposed to be on by the timer. If it's on and then he plugs it in, so immediately it starts working. So that's a mir lakum. That's definitely not allowed. And you're not allowed to benefit from it either. It doesn't help that he did it. But if it's a situation where it's not on right now, according to the timer, it's off. And it's meant to turn on in 15 minutes, half an hour. And you call in a goy. Now, you can't tell the goy, well, it depends. If we're talking about the food that's necessary for you, which is normally the case to eat during the Shabbos meal, and it's a big difference if you have cold chicken or if you have hot chicken. It's a very big difference. Not talking about the soup, which is totally inedible. If it's a cold soup, usually you can't eat it. If it's a type of soup that's meant to be hot, not a cold summer soup, but a chicken soup that's meant to be hot, you can't eat it when it's cold. It's almost inedible. Disgusting. So when cases where your actual food, your Shabbos food of the main meal is now going to be cold, and by this it's going to be hot, then we can call it tzorchei mitzvah, because it's owning Shabbos. Rashi says, why was it the Neshama Yetera given to us on Shabbat? Le'echol v'lishtot. That's what Rashi says. And the Neshama Yetera is to be able to eat and drink and be happy and have a lot of food. So you got a Neshama Yetera to have extra, to feed more. We're able to eat more that way. So it's oneg Shabbos, mitzvah divrei Kabbalah. V'karata l'Shabbat oneg, because Hashem mechubad, in Pasuk in Yeshayahu. So it's a mitzvah divrei Kabbalah. It's higher than Rabbanan, less than Deraita, but it's definitely a mitzvah to enjoy yourself on Shabbat by eating good food. The moment it's cold, it's no longer good. It's not tasty. It's much, much tastier if you have hot food. So for owning Shabbos, you want the goy to stick in the wire, the cord into the socket, and it's not immediate. So it's double derabanan. That's what I told him. It's shvut to shvut. And firstly, it's a goy. That's already derabanan, no matter what he does. Even if he would put it in a way that gets turned on immediately, and then we say it's havara deoraita. The malacha itself is deoraita, but the goy doing it is derabanan. For a Jew to ask the goy to do something, even if it's a malacha deoraita, the Jewish is rabbinically forbidden. So it's a one rabbanan that the goy is doing it for us, and it's another derabanan that it's grama, because it's not going to turn on immediately. It's going to be delayed. The result will be delayed. So it's for grama of a goy. So it's two derabanans. And two derabanans, the Shulchan Aruch and Shin Zayin Sifei allows in three cases: tzorach mitzvah, tzorach gadol, and mikzas choli, when you're not feeling well. Those three cases, we allow trade deraban, shvut to shvut. So this is called tzorach mitzvah. You could also say tzorach gadol, because your wife is not going to be pleased that you forgot to put in the platter. So it's tzorach gadol for your relationship with your wife. Yeah, it's the fashas, right? Almost. Yeah, she prepared such great food and you forgot to put the platter. It's terrible. Yeah. So it's tzorach gadol. So you have double derabanan. So then you can have. That's the only way that I could think of. True that also b'shinui by a Jew could also work, because shinui is one derabanan, grama is another. It's straight derabanan. Bimkom tzorach gadol mitzvah mitzvahs choli, which we allow. But it's very hard to think of a shinui that can get the cord into the socket. Yeah. Okay.
Back in my mind, I understood Shabbos talking about the timer. There's a difference between if the timer's not on now, making it earlier or making it later. One's mutter, one's usher.
Yeah. Always to extend the situation, you're allowed to prolong the situation. Right. What's that?
Doesn't matter on or off. Let's say it's off now.
Right.
You don't want it to go on. You want it not go on for another
hour. To extend the going on. Right. Then you're allowed to extend the situation.
It's off. So it's off now. It's supposed to go on at 12 o'clock. I want it to go on at 1 o'clock.
Right.
I can make it go on at 1.
Right.
But I can't make it go on at 11.
Exactly.
Now, by me making it go on at 1, that's not called grama?
No. It's called Hemshech matzav kayam. You're not changing. Grama is when you're causing something to change its situation earlier or later or not indirectly. That's grama. But if right now it's off and it's meant to go on, you're not making it go on just earlier than what you really want it. So you're just extending the off situation. You're not doing anything for it to turn on. You're not touching the pegs to make it turn on. You're canceling the pegs that were meant to make it turn on earlier. That's not grama. Grama is when you make something change. You're changing the situation.
By making it go on at 11 instead of 12?
That's grama. Exactly. That's grama.
But 1 o'clock is fine.
Right.
But if it is up from 12,
So, Rob,
you can make it continue to 2, 3. Right. Similarly.
keep it going.
Right. Keeping something the same way it's now is not grama. Changing the situation is grama. Yes.
You had said that Rav Shlomo Zalman did allow you to do a change if it's currently now and it's for later that the change is going to happen. Let's say it's like you said, if it's on tonight, let's say the lights are on now, they're going to go off overnight, and they're going to come on again tomorrow at 9 in the morning.
Correct.
And you decided, I want it to go on at 8 in the morning. As long as it's on now, I can actually make it go on earlier for the later time.
True. But even that's not grama.
Right. But because it's not grama, that's why he allows it.
Right. I would say even though you're changing the situation, it would have been at 9 and now you're doing it at 8. You're making it come on earlier. But since right now it's on, so it's considered from on to on. It's as if extending the fact that it's on now to 8 o'clock in the morning.
The clock is on Friday night.
Yeah.
You had it on for 12 o'clock for Shabbos lunch, and you had it put it for 11 in the morning.
Allowed.
Once it's on, you have nothing to worry about.
Correct. It's a big chiddush of Shlomo Zalman. He proves it from 3 or 4 different sources in the Shas. Big chiddush, but he allows that. Correct. And same from off to off. If let's say it's off now, and it's supposed to turn on at some point, and then go off again, you can make it go off earlier. Let's say it's now off. It's going to turn on 10 in the morning and go off at 1. And suddenly you realize that 1 is much too late. You want it off by 11. An hour is enough for you, for something. So you can make it turn off earlier because it's from off to off. Right now, it's off. So you can make it turn off early.
It's off. Can you pull out of the wall? It's off?
From this point of view, yes. From the electricity point of view, yes. As long as you're not pulling out the timer from the wall, because the timer itself is working no matter what.
Oh, because there is a clock.
The clock is running electricity. Electricity is running in the timer all the time, even when it's off. So you can't pull the clock out of the socket, but you can pull the cord from the timer. Pull it out of the timer, yes, when it's off, but you only have one problem there, muktzeh. The cord itself is muktzeh because it wasn't meant to be touched the whole Shabbat. It's something that we normally don't touch and we don't move and it has no purpose on Shabbat, so it's muktzeh. So you can't just pull it out with your hand because you're moving muktzeh. But if you need desperately to take it out of the socket, then you have to do it b'shinui, which is again very difficult. You do it with the 2 backs of your hands and pull it out, it'll work. But be very careful not to pull out the timer. It's very difficult. Use your teeth maybe and pull it out with your teeth. Not the wisest.
Where telling a child to do something on Shabbos is mutter? Or is that general concept of misunderstanding?
Generally, try never to use a child for doing things on Shabbat. Never, ever. For 2 reasons. A, because of Safir Le Bayadai, we just said now, it's a Misa Doraita to cause a child to do something for you. And B, but by the way, that's only true that if you cause a child to do something for you, then you're chayv deoraita. No, that's true for everyone. Sorry, that's true for everyone. I was going to say only for a parent, but that's not true. Any adult, any gadol that causes a child to do a malacha is deoraita level, not allowed. The trick they play is, so that's for one reason. The second reason is, educationally, it's not the right thing. The moment they start grasping that it's Shabbos today, so not talking about a 2-year-old child, but 3 or 4-year-olds, start feeling that there's something special about this day, and they learn about it in Gan, and they come back home with all the different Torah, and they know what Shabbos is. We have the concept in the Gan, Abba Shel Shabbat, Ima Shel Shabbat. They know it's something special. So if they see that you're asking them to do all kinds of things on Shabbat, they'll grow up thinking that Shabbat isn't so serious because I did stuff that my parents didn't do. And said, I mean, so that's very bad communication. What's that?
We all have a lot of memories when we're 3 years old.
So maybe not 3, but 4 or 5. Definitely start remembering things. It's a bad influence on the child to ask him to do these things. Anyway, but when halachically are you able to use a child? So if you're not instructing them directly to do something or not leading their hand to what you want them to do, rather you just hold them in your hand. You hold the child in your hand, and he starts playing with the knob or with the button or kinds of things like that. And by them playing, he touches something and he does what you want him to do.
You don't have to prevent the play, in other words.
Correct. That's not safilei bayadayim. Safilei bayadayim is only when you direct them, instruct them, lead them to do the thing. Here, you're just holding them up close to the socket. They like playing.
You just happen to be holding them in front of the refrigerator.
Right. Okay. But that's okay. That's safilei bayadayim. Although, even for that, there's a case where it's not allowed. Even that's not allowed all the time. And that is, first of all, we're not talking about a kid that's above 3, because if he's above 3, he mustn't do anything anyhow because it's chinuch. We said for negative commandments, lo ta'aseh, we start educating them not to do Yisurim for the age of 3. It has to be below 3, allowed for them to be allowed for themselves, by themselves to do the malach. After 3, they're not allowed to do the malacha because you have to educate them not to refrain from any negative commandment. So that's definitely no way can that be ever possible to use a kid above 3. But less than 3, then there's no chinuch from the point of view that we have to educate them to refrain from malacha. They could do, if a kid 2 years old is writing, using a magic marker on Shabbat, you don't have to stop. Only as of the age of 3 do you have to stop a kid from writing, doing any malacha. Turning on lights, turning off lights. It's bad for the household if you start turning on and off. You don't know if it'll be kept the way you want it. But from the point of view of the child, before the age of 3, there's no chinuch. He's not aware of what he's doing. He has no idea what today is. And so that's okay from the point of view of the child. So then you can have him play around with all kinds of things without instructing, because instructing, either they want you not that instructing a baby or lead them to do something. But if you're not instructing, they're just playing around, then we allow that. Although there's still one restriction even for that. Even for a kid below 3, and they're just playing around, you're not instructing anything, even that has one restriction. And that is, this is all in Shimon Gimel in the Shulchan Aruch. Really correctly, Shimon Gimel, I think, is the one before last Siman of Hilchos Shabbos. One before last Siman, Shimon Gimel. Shimon Dalet is the last Siman of Shabbos. So then it turns into Hilchos Eruvin. Shimon Hey is already Eruvin. That's a whole very complicated simanim there in the Shulchan Aruch. But Shimon Gimel is this issue of children doing things or not doing things on Shabbat for us. So there's one restriction even when they're just playing around and they're less than 3. And that is, if the child understands, and this could be between 2 to 3, let's say, the age between 2 to 3 or 1.5, maybe if they're very smart. If they understand that their father or mother need them to press that button, if they understand they're doing it for their parents' sake, then you can't allow them to do it either. But not d'oraita, that's not safilei bayadayim, that's rabbinically forbidden. When they know they're doing it for their parents' sake. If they're just playing around, they have no idea that the parents would like them to press this button or to close this door or to do whatever, then it's okay. But if they realize that it's for their parents' sake, then it's not okay anymore. And you mustn't do it. That's why I said before, sometimes it's better not to have the father of the child hold the kid up, rather have a stranger hold the kid up. Because when the father or mother hold the kid up, the kid starts realizing, wait, he wants me to play with this. So it's probably what he needs. But if it's someone else holding the kid up, because this is only true if the kid is doing it for his parents' sake and not for anyone else's sake. Even if he knows he's doing it for someone else's sake, it doesn't matter. It's only related to the parents because of mitzvahs chinuch, that's specifically the parents who educate their child, not someone else. Stranger doesn't have any obligation and shouldn't butt in to the education of someone else's child. But parents who are supposed to educate them, they mustn't allow the kid to do something, even if it's himself playing, if the kid knows that he's doing it for the parents' sake. So these are the somehow summary of the ways to use and not to use a child. So it becomes very complicated to use a kid. If you take all these things into consideration, you can barely ever use a child to do it. Besides the educational point that we said before, that we're allowing them to be involved in Chilul Shabbos, and who knows what effect that will have on them later.
Yeah. In a grama case where the father is leading the child under 3 years old to play with the switch.
Okay.
So if it's a grama situation, does it matter if the item that's going to be turned on has a hot wire in it, or versus does not have a hot wire in it?
No, it wouldn't matter because grama, in any case, makes a d'Rabbanan. In any case, even if it has a hot wire in it, it's only rabbinically forbidden because it's grama. And the kid playing around with the socket or the button there is, so again, sometimes it's totally permissible because if it's not you leading the child, he's just playing on his own and he doesn't know it's for the parents' sake, then it's totally mutar, totally allowed. And if it's a case where you're not leading the child because then it's d'oraita, but you're letting them play and they know it's for their parents' sake, they realize that it's something good for the parent, then it's only rabbinic. And if it's grama, that's a second rabbinic, two rabbinic prohibitions, shvut to shvut. And then when we come tzorach gadol, mitzvah, or mitzvahs choli, one of those three cases, we allow that. So that can be used.
But some gramas are a deraisa if there's a hot wire in it. And the other one's a grama of a rabbanan.
Of a rabbanan, right.
So doesn't that play into it, whether the grama is a grama of a deraisa?
Of a deraisa?
I understand, but you talk about with a father moving the child's arm. Are we thinking in that case that it's a deraisa? It's a grama on a deraisa? Or are we talking about a grama on a...
No, in any case, even a grama on deraisa becomes the rabbanan. Doesn't matter that it's a grama on a deraisa malach. Okay. Automatically, a grama becomes the rabbanan. You're saying that if it's a grama on a derabanan action, then it's already trade rabbanan, which is true. That already is trade rabbanan.
In theory, lets you do it, but it doesn't. You understand?
Right. So I'll tell you when it does. Mitzvahs choli, mitzvah, or tzorach gadol would allow even you to do that. Although poskim in our days say the following. They say, true, the trader rabbanon, but most electric appliances, most of them are rabbinic to begin with. Just to turn them on. The AC, the LEDs, lights, LEDs, you name it, radio, computer, TV, all those are rabbinic. There's no filament, the fans, all those are rabbinic. Most electrical appliances that we have at home are rabbinic. Except the plata. Plata is the raita, and except for the oven, the oven. The oven is also the raita. That's heat that comes from, or a stovetop that's electric. Electric stovetop is also the raita because it's hot wires. You can heat it up. There are these heating furnaces for in the wintertime. The spiral cords that get very red. Those are definitely deraita. And some of those that throw hot air are also deraita. Some yes, some not. Depends if they have the filament wire that reddens in them or not. Anyway, most electrical appliances are rabbanan. So really, it should be very easy to switch on most electrical appliances, to put them on grama. And then you have trade rabbanan. Although you need Mekom Tzorach Gadol, Mekom Tzorach Mitzvah, or Mekom Mitzvahs Choli, But you can easily get to that as well. Let's say the air conditioning is off and it's hot. It's a hot day. And we weren't planning so much that you would need the AC. Suddenly you feel you need the AC on. So if you make sure the timer is off right now, and for you, it's a terrible feeling now for owning Shabbos. It's ruining your owning Shabbos. You can't eat comfortably. It's too hot. So it's tzorach mitzvah. The timer is off so that when you switch it on, it's not going to turn on immediately. The pegs are off now. You set the pegs to turn on in 15 minutes. You yourself lift them up in 15 minutes to start working. And then you turn on the AC. It's not going to turn on immediately. You have a double derabbanan because the AC itself is derabbanan. And the grama is another one, like they just said now. And it's become tzorach mitzvah because it's only Shabbos. So why should you not be allowed to do it yourself? This is a big question. It's sort of a secret because
it's purely one of those things that's it's a slippery slope.
But
halachically, there's like the tarbut, there's the halacha.
Oh, exactly. The spirit. The spirit of Shabbos is not to touch anything electronic on your own, and especially not to do it normally. Turn on normally with this grama activation, but it's doing it normally. That's not something that we allow because we're afraid it's desecrating. It's called ziluta de Shabta. It's desecrating the spirit of Shabbos. We'll start turning on so many things on Shabbat by merely switching to grama, and then the whole house can start working.
Your spirit's not my spirit, and my spirit's not David's spirit, and David's spirit's not
who. Oh, so that's why we need poskim that oversee the whole issue, the whole topic. Big poskim, and they've decided that we mustn't use trade derabbanan for electrical appliances. Never use that kula for a Jew. If you do it by a non-Jew, that's fine. A non-Jew is trade derabbanan by the fact that he's not a Jew. But never use a trade derabbanan leniency. Don't use that type of leniency when you're talking about a grown-up Jew. Grown-up Jew, never use that because otherwise everyone's gonna do everything in the house just by grama, making grama. It's very simple. And we start opening electric lines and everything, you name it, everything we need, because otherwise it's not owning Shabbos for us. So that's why we don't do these things.
We have a situation where they have these LEDs in the refrigerator that go on when you open the door.
Right. Yeah.
And your whole Shabbos is in
the fridge. And you forgot to set it beforehand for Shabbos, Shabbos mode.
These LEDs, the way they have them sitting in there, it's really hard to deactivate them.
Not only that, the moment you open the door in order to deactivate them, you're turning them on.
Like prior to Shabbos.
You wanted to.
Let's say, in other words, prior to, sometimes it used to be in the old days, you could put a piece of tape over that button.
Yeah, right.
But nowadays, you try to get in there and try and deactivate the LED before Shabbos.
Well, I would tell you something further than that. If you're asking me about that, it means that the fridge is not a Shabbos mode fridge. It doesn't have a Shabbos mode on it.
Right.
Very problematic in general to use such a fridge today.
So what do you do?
And nowadays, you have to buy one that has Shabbos mode on it.
I know that. But if you didn't do that,
if you didn't do that,
and your whole shop, because sometimes you go away for Shabbos.
Yeah.
And you rent somebody's house or something.
They have such a fridge there.
They have a refrigerator.
No, because I'm saying it's not only the light that's an issue. In modern fridges, there's a whole computerized system there. And when you open the door, it immediately starts calculating all kinds of things. The thermostat, the heat of the fridge, and how long the door is open, because it wants to remind you to close the door. A lot of things get activated as you're opening the door. So no way are you able to buy a fridge nowadays without having Shabbos mode, because it deactivates a lot of things, not just the light. It deactivates the whole system.
What if you have a thing like that and you forgot to deactivate it before Shabbos?
Oh, that's the question. So if you have a fridge that has a Shabbos mode, you forgot to deactivate it before Shabbos. So again, it's very complicated because it's not just the light.
I understand, right?
Right.
Also, is God,
No, it's not, because it's secretion. Secretion. It has to happen. The moment you open the door, even though you're not intending for the computer to start calculating things and for the light to go on. And you're not even nichale.
You don't want it. All you want to
right.
get the food out.
But it's psik reisha de lo nichale. I agree. The Rabbanan. So it's not allowed. Forbidden to open the fridge door. And we don't use here, again, the trader Rabbanan to help us out. Even if you open it b'shinui. Here it's easy to open the fridge door b'shinui. Use your elbow and open it up. So you can do trader Rabbanan, call mitzvah, you need the food. We don't do that because of this spirit of Shabbos. Then we'll start doing.
Having no food is more important than spirit of Shabbos than doing. Come on.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to say.
No food on Shabbos is much more important for your spirit of Shabbos than doing.
So this man that asked me this morning.
With the lo miskaven, the lo nichale.
With the psik reisha.
Okay.
Yeah, but what can you do? Because otherwise, a person will say, without me knowing what went on with my stocks on Shabbat, I'm going to faint. So it can happen. He's going to turn on. He's going to turn on the computer.
That's not a jump. That's a leap.
Okay, but
that's not a leap. That's an Olympic.
But the
Olympic
no, the postkins oversee everything, and they say that if we start allowing this person to do that, the other person's to do that, this and that, and this and that, and the whole Shabbos will be.
Everyone agrees to Sorach Gadol.
So you're saying practically speaking,
check your stocks is not a Sorach Gadol.
For some people it is.
In that situation, practically speaking, you really don't have advice.
So it depends. If normally, when does a person realize that that's the situation?
At the very last moment.
After they open the door. No, but they open the fridge door and they see, oops, the light is on. Okay, that's when they notice, right?
Before you should know, could be like.
In other words, you get
that I forgot. Okay, so let's first talk about a case where you open the door and you suddenly realize, oops, what's going to happen? No, so leave it open. Leave it open. You're allowed to use all the food that's inside because the malacha had nothing to do with the food. The malacha had to do with the fridge. The food wasn't at all affected by the malacha. So you're allowed to take the food out. You don't need to take all your food out and then close the fridge door. It's going to spoil overnight. So you leave most of the food inside, you take just what you need to out. You don't shut the door totally, and then you can't open it again. You close it almost to the end with a towel wrapped around the door so that the towel doesn't let it shut totally. And then the light and the computer stays on the whole Shabbat. Although you get some hot air all the time going in, you can't help it. It's a little inefficient, but on a winter day, definitely it's not going to spoil. Even a summer day, unless it's very, very, very hot, the food is not going to spoil if it's almost closed, almost to the end, but not all the way to
preventing it from closing entirely.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the way. Now, if you realized before you open the door that you hadn't set it on the Shabbos mode, then you can't open it on your own. Having a child less than three again, playing around with the door because you put it next to it and starts playing around, and he's unaware of the fact that you want the door open is okay, but not sure they're strong enough. A 2-year-old kid can't open it. It's not so practical. So the only way not to do is if the guy, again, you call a guy who will do now a trader Rabbanan, because asking a guy is one, opening the fridge is another. It's only rabbinically forbidden. So trader Rabbanan is allowed. We call it Tzarech Mitzvah, and then they'll close it again.
And if you're in a totally full neighborhood, then you should have a lot.
Would we say then that it's so desperately necessary that you would do Bishinoi? I assume so.
No question.
Right.
No
question. Right. So when you have no choice whatsoever, not a child less than 3 that can do it, not a guy that can do it, and you're left without any food on Shabbat, do it Bishinoi. Yes. Then you're allowed. Then David's remark was correct. Too much of a major issue not to allow Bishinoi.
At that point, you feel so bad that you have to do it. So not likely to go check your stocks, are you?
One can answer the other. Okay, we've gone way over time. Okay, so have a Shavua Tov, everyone. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.
Okay, take care. Take care.